dating, relationships, friendships, chastity, marriage, the Catholic guide to these things, all these wonderful, exciting things. This week on the show with my guests, Sarah and Andrew Swafford. These guys are incredible, decade plus of awesome ministry to youths, young people, and they've brought their wealth of knowledge to bear on these kinds of questions. Whether you are a Catholic young adult looking to get into, understand relationships and where you fit in, and the church fits in those things and teaches and understands those, whether you are an older person trying to understand how to tell other people what the church believes about these things, or you are anybody who's looking to be in a friendship or a relationship of any kind. These guys are fantastic on this topic, and I think you will love it. Please interact, leave some comments below. People need to see this stuff. I think it's wonderful. It's fantastic. Hope you love it. Let me know and enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. If you are listening on podcast, thank you. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, this podcast. Follow it wherever you find it, please. And if you could leave a rating or a review, those help to push the podcast out to new listeners and expand the audience for conversations like this one. If you're watching on YouTube, hi, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to this channel if you can. Like the video, leave some comments, interact, and share this with friends who might want to see this. This is going to be a fantastic conversation, guys. I am joined by Andrew and Sarah Swafford. They live in Atchison, Kansas. Dr. Andrew is a professor at Benedictine College in Atchison. I already said that once. I'm not going to try and say it again. Professor of theology. They are co-authors of a fantastic new book called, to my hand here, just look down at it, Gift and Grit, How Heroic Virtue Can Change Your Life and Relationships. Sarah is, of course, the founder of Emotional Virtue Ministries, an international speaker on a variety of topics: faith, relationships, interior confidence. They co-host What We Believe, the Beauty of the Catholic Faith, from Ascension, and all kinds of other things. I'm looking at your bios, guys, and I really can't piece it all together. You guys do amazing things and have done awesome things. Andrew, welcome back to the show. I've had you a number of years back, and I know when I had you back then, it's funny, you said, you got to talk to Sarah. She's even better than I am. Like, she's the brains and the heart of the family. To talk to her. You said that. That's on record. So I'm glad to have you both back on the show. I'm sorry I mangled your intro. You guys know this. We're waiting on the birth of our fourth child. I've got no sleep as we anticipate that. You guys also have a number of kids, including a new one as well. So we'll just try and muddle through this as best we can. Sleep deprived, as I'm sure we all are. But thanks for being here, guys, and welcome to back to the show.
It's so great to be with you, Keith.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's
for having
nice
us.
to meet you. My husband raves about you equally.
Oh, gosh.
It's awesome to be with you.
Well, thank you. This will require a lot of editing, I think, on my part of all the stupid things I'm already saying in this show.
Oh, you are fine. That's the beauty of editing. God made filters and editing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. For tired parents. Guys, this is a fantastic book. And I want to, like, I've been paging through it the last number of weeks since I got a copy, and I was thinking of this interview coming up. And we could spend the whole episode in just part one of this book, like your stories, what inspired this. So I don't know how we'll ever kind of get through this in the time we have here, but I want to ask you to begin with kind of that part. What was kind of the genesis for thinking about virtue in relationships? Like, you guys have your own stories that kind of lead up to this, to kind of show the reader where you were thinking of this and why this was a thing. I don't know if you can kind of truncate that or weave those together, but I want to ask you, and you guys can work out an answer. Where did this come from? Like, where did the idea of this book and the idea of the emphasis on heroic virtue underpinning our relationships, where did that come from for you guys?
That's such a great question. I'm so glad we have 4 hours to unpack all of those.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. That's always my joke, but I'm kind of not joking. You know, people will ask me on an airplane, so what do you do? Where are you going? And I'm like, I don't know if I could even explain it in this 45 minutes. You know what I mean? So, but the short answer is this book is really probably we've been talking about the things that are in this book for 15 years and maybe 20. We've been married 18. Some of this stuff in this book is things that we sorted out ourselves in college. And, when we were talking, we love young adults. shout out to the young adult the community. And then I always say the young at heart, because I think I'm 25. I am not. I am 40, and my children are closer in age to the college students than I am. But I will forever be big sister, and I am staying here proud. And so we just have a heart for young adults. We had our conversion in college. The first few years after college were really hard for us. I mean, I think right now we had a heart for young adults before COVID, and now it's just like my heart just expanded for them. And it is just not easy. We thought it was hard before, and they've just been handed a whole new deck of cards and like, good luck, you know, play with these. So I really have a heart for them. So often you know, again, like we live across the street from 2,000 amazing college students. And so we get to hear, like, a lot of my friends in ministry are like, how do you know these things? I'm like, my kitchen island, literally, you know what I mean? Like we just hear a lot of what's like going on right now. And it's so different than even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It looks so different. And as social media evolves, as online dating evolves, as the world just continues to change and morph into new problems are also sometimes the same old problems. You know, I think some things that people 200 years ago struggled with, we still struggle with. And yet we have all these new things to struggle with. So this book was really, Swaff and I kind of said, it's time to write down all the things that we say all the time. And that's how my book, Emotional Virtue, was born. You know, Jason Everett was like, you have to start writing this down because you can't be everywhere and people need this. And that was what this book was. It's like, man, we wish we could grab coffee or dinner with every single person, young adult, anybody, adult. And this was kind of our way of saying, like, if we were to sit down, this is kind of the things that we would say. And we tried to put it together. We're still married through writing a book, which is amazing. I mean, I'm joking, but we're still married. We're very different in our approach to life because, you know, we have totally different personalities. And so I think this book is really the best of both of us. And then we massaged it in a way that we really, really want men to read this book. We really want men to read this book because there's not a lot out there for them. And we just feel like, you know, a lot of women want them to lead in relationships. And a lot of guys come to us and are like, I got nothing, you know, like I want to do this, but I have no idea what she's talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. Help me. And so we wrote this with the men in mind. That's why I'm so glad you like the cover, because we begged for it to be masculine and beautiful. So yeah.
That's fantastic, guys. You guys are fantastic. I love this. And it is, you know what, that's a good way of putting that, Sarah, because it feels like you're kind of just sitting down and saying, here's what we've learned through dating, through a relationship, through interacting with other young adults and learning these things, through deeply loving the Catholic faith and these kind of things. I love it. It feels like that kind of conversation. I think that's so important. And what you say too, I mean, I think of, so my own background is evangelical. I was evangelical through high school up until university. We had our conversion around the time our first child was born, right? So at 2014 or so. And I can remember, like back then, you know, we're similar ages. We're the same age. So, and I can think back then, like dating was weird and confusing back then. Mm-hmm. And for me, there was this evangelical lens on top of that, which was this weird kind of, like there were some pretty, in hindsight, pretty toxic kind of ideas about what relationships should be and the point of marriage and how you should date and do dating. This was the era of some really strange ideas. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's even stranger now. Right? Like it's even more, throw in the internet and throw in online dating and throw in the proliferation of pornography and of objectification of women and girls and the female body and sex and all these things. Like it's even more complicated now, right? So to give people kind of some guidance in how those things work. I mean, I love that. And I love that. I mean, this is, as you say, an area where I think so many young Catholics are just dying for some guidance to know how to navigate these things, how to, you know, there's a great big anchor on the front of this book here, which I think is fantastic, right? Because that there's a need for that kind of anchoring and navigation of these choppy waters, if I can pull that metaphor a bit further. So that's awesome. Now, one of the things that you ground this book in the beginning is this idea of Shrodu Viskro. I think.
Good
Is that okay?
That's great.
I got Polish on my mom's side, okay? So I try
love
very hard to. Can you unpack, because this is really cool, and this kind of frames out a bit of this, kind of sets the kind of, what am I saying here? You know what I mean? It kind of sets the tone for things that follow. So can we explain this a little bit, Andrew? What is this idea?
No, and there's a lot of different angles, because as you know,
we only have 4 hours, right? So.
So maybe as a quick anecdote, in 2018, as we mentioned in the book, in spring of 2018, I taught in Florence. We had our whole family over in Florence, Italy. Benedictine's got a sister campus over there, and we send a professor and about 50 students each semester. And I taught my class on JP2, and I've taught on JP2 for a number of years now here. And our students, they think highly of him. You know, all their mentors spoke highly of him. It's like, he's great, but they don't know his human story. They don't know the background. They don't know the man. And that's been so fun. And so this word is a Polish word that is key to his background. And basically, as a young priest, 1949, he's stationed at St. Florian's in Krakow. And this is under atheistic communism, right? And our students know nothing about communism, right? I mean, they weren't even, even JP2's death, they were very young when that happened. And we think communism, well, that's when we just share everything, right? It's, well, not exactly, right? I mean, that's called Catholic social teaching, right? This was a systematic promulgation of atheism, a distinctive sexual ethic, a attempt to rewrite Polish history in terms of severing it from its Catholic past and giving a charter for what the Polish future is going to be, which meant a battle over the hearts and minds of the Polish youth, and sexuality, family, it was. And the students read about this and like, oh my gosh, this sounds like today. I'm like, bingo. And so środowisko means environment in Polish, or JP2 preferred milieu. It was a group that formed as college students around the young Father Wojtyła in this communist atheistic culture. And they first called themselves Rodzinka, which meant little family. And it was this zone of freedom where they could actually be themselves, build friendships based on their faith. He took them kayaking, took them to the mountains. I mean, these students often would not exchange last names because you didn't know who you could. I mean, communism was built on fear and isolation. Like, if you think you're the only one, am I the only one who has misgivings about the public ideology? If you think you're alone, you'll be afraid and you'll conform. And that's how it was built. And as he built these środowiskos, these people stayed in touch their whole lives. I mean, we could go on and on and on.
You know the black and white pictures of JP2, like the super fun bougie pictures everybody loves. That's when he was taking them up into the mountains, and that's why they were hiding, to be honest. Because a lot of times I always wondered, he's never in clerics, he's never in his collar in those pictures, and it's because honestly, if he would have been caught with them, he would have been arrested, and they could have been arrested also. Yeah,
illegal for a priest to be a Polish youth.
They called him Wujek. They called him Uncle Carol, so that he wouldn't be arrested. And so it just gets cooler and cooler and kind of crazier and crazier the more you dig. And when we were talking to the students about this, they were just like, this is wild how similar it is. So many young adults are looking for their Father Wojtyła. They're looking for their mentors to say, am I crazy or are they crazy? Because I don't feel like I fit in this, but I don't even know who to ask these questions to. And that's where we're so passionate about this, about walking with people, accompanying people, because in our day and age, it's just not an intellectual game. It's just not an emotional game. It's not just a spiritual game. It's all of it.
It's a human game.
It's a human game. And it's hard if you don't have all the pieces. You're going to feel confused, overwhelmed, stressed, worried, anxious, feeling like you're inadequate, going into these insecurities of, I don't know my faith. I don't know what to say and how to act and what to do. And then I don't know who to hang out with either. So that's why we try to attack this multiple headed beast that is trying to be human right now. It's really hard.
One little anecdote, this whole thing began, he started this little student choir, and 6 of those beginning choir, 3 marriages come out of that. 6 of those people got married to each other. And we actually, from our students in Florence, this is spring of 2018, none of whom were dating at the time, we've had 3 marriages come out of 5 of the 6 students who are with us. And again, you don't join a środowisko to get married. But it sort of becomes like the side effect when you're just running toward Jesus and you're just living life with meaning and purpose, which is kind of where the title came from. We were working with meaning and grit. So many people, their lives, it's like a story with no plot, right? When this postmodern era, this nihilistic era, it's like, what's my life all about? I mean, eventually the the prestige and the money and the sex. It's all going to fall up short. It's Augustine's story. And so the longing for meaning and purpose, and that fuels us. But then we've also seen a number of people, ourselves included, it's like, yeah, I want that. They kind of get started. It's like, but what happens becomes inconvenient, unpopular, uncomfortable. It's like, that's where the grit piece comes in. So meaning fuels grit, and real meaning is received as gift. So that's where the title comes from, gift and grit, that these are going to be two poles that are going to kind of sustain any vocation, priestly, religious, marriage, single, what have you.
Well, and Andy always says this, and I'm always like, dang, that's good. That happens a lot in our marriage where I'm like, oh, that sounded really good. He's just a very good looking, intelligent man. I always say I'm not the cuter or smarter Swafford.
I'm not going to argue with you.
But he always says, like, meaning that is self-made is no meaning at all.
Right.
And we watch young adults try to manipulate and like try to just like, I'm just going to be this because I want to be this, or I want to succeed. And I'm just going to like grit it out and just do this. And they get like, we watch them just put themselves in knots trying to create meaning in their lives. And that's where the gift part came from, is like, no, your life is a gift from God. And when you start to see that everything is gift and that you're a gift, and you live in that confidence as a daughter of God or as a beloved son of God, then you realize that the meaning of your life is to give your life away as a gift. And do you have the grit to do that? Because that is the entire interplay of life. I mean, you're a dad. Like, there are so many days where your vocation, we have so many priest friends. There is nothing glamorous about being in your vocation, like day in and day out. Like it's glamorous, but it's different. It's beautiful and it's sacrificial and it's wonderful. But a lot of times I think we see things we want and we're like, oh, it's just so amazing. And then they get there and they're like, what did I just sign up for? I am out. Like and we've been walking with these young adults for 15 years. And so we've seen, I'm old enough to have girls that I walked with have 3 kids now. And I'm like, oh, how am I old enough for them to have 3 kids? Why do I have 6 kids? You know what I mean? So like, we've been walking this road and we don't want to set people up to fail. And the world sometimes sets them up to fail. And sometimes even in our church, you walk into with rosy colored glasses of just like what this is going to be like as in your vocation. And it's beautiful and wonderful, but it's not always easy. And it's not always glamorous. And we're wanting to make sure we set people up to succeed, which is where this gift and grit really comes in, is really having this whole picture before walking into your life.
Yeah, that's fantastic, guys. I love this. And I think, like, I'm thinking back on my time. So I was in university, evangelical. I knew a lot of Catholics. One Catholic guy in my course befriended me and took me to mass a few times. And I watched his life and the life of other Catholics that I knew look not different whatsoever to secular lives of many. Myself and evangelical friends, we were practicing as best we could chastity, and we were dating very carefully, knowing that our lives and our bodies and ourselves were a gift to others, and that wasn't to be just given out randomly, right? We were very intentional, and I mentioned before, there were also weird ideas out there of dating in those back then, even for Christian world writ large. Yeah. But time and again, a lot of the Catholics I saw, on campus and different things, didn't look that different from secular society. And now that we're Catholic, looking at raising Catholic kids and around Catholic families with lots of Catholic kids and around Catholic young adults, I can see the need for defining, that meaning in your life, right? Recognizing, as you say, first of all, that you are a gift, right? Your vocation is a gift. Everything you do in life is given to you as a gift and to give to others, right? In service. And that requires this grit to kind of do that, to kind of carry that out. Can we unpack that grit piece a bit more? Because I don't think it's just that kind of, just try harder kind of thing, is it? Yeah.
No, yeah, go Swaff. We wrote about this very clearly because the culture has grit. The culture loves the I'm gonna be amazing for myself. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm going to grit it out for myself. And that's like total opposite of what we're talking about. We're talking about like this heroic supernatural grit that is like only from God. literally the mother that's up at 4 a.m. who's been up every hour, and then the kid vomits. It's like, this is supernatural at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yes,
babies are cute, so you don't throw them out the window, right? Like, I'm kidding, but like, you know what I mean? Like the moms and the dads that are just like, you know, going on the 6-month teething baby, you know, it's just like, it's so hard. Or even the young adults, the single young adults that are 32 and are like, I'm done being Catholic. I'm bitter. I'm just anxious. I've tried all these, you know, I want a vocation and I'm done. And so I'm just going to settle and I'm going to just go sleep with this guy or this girl because I'm so tired of being alone. It takes supernatural grit to stay in the game. It takes supernatural grit to stay close to Christ when you're ready to be done with the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the concept in some ways is inspired by Father Walter Ciszek and his story, the great Jesuit missionary to communist Russia. And it you know, and I think one of the key things, so you're right, it's not the stoic, just pick yourself up by the bootstraps. And that kind of grit has gotten secular traction. It's like, that can take you somewhat, but that's not what we mean. It's really seeing your whole life in light of faith and seeing now there's some situations, obviously, we should get ourselves away from immediately, whether it's abuse or things like that.
Right.
But there are other situations where, gosh, this just doesn't seem as glamorous as I thought it would. It seems a little more onerous than I thought it would. I'm not feeling like the MVP of my team like I thought I would. And some of those, it's sort of like, so Ciszek, if you know Father, or you know, St. Ignatius of Loyola, his discernment of spirits, overcoming desolation, his rule 5 is really, I mean, just old-fashioned wisdom, but it goes a long way. And it's this, that in a time of desolation, when you're feeling down, you're feeling far from God, never make a spiritual change. Some changes you should make, but that's not the time of clear, sober decision-making. That's the time of the lie. And so, and with Ciszek, you know, he ends up spending 15 years in a Siberian communist prison camp. And ironically, it's only there that he's able to kind of exercise priestly ministry. And he might have been like, gosh, why did I ever? And it's a long story how he gets there, but like, what? My life's a joke. What was I thinking? Why did I do this? And he just never does that. And he's like, he sees his time there mysteriously as a gift from the Lord that he would never have chosen for himself. But he sees in that moment that really his task is to be faithful to what the Lord has given him, to embrace, accept, and offer back as a holy sacrifice. It's like, gosh, if he can do that in a communist prison camp, I can do that as a dad of a young kid, a young child, or I mean, there's lots of situations where I think we're prone to throw in the towel too soon. And again, there's some situations where we need to say, this is not good. I need to get out of here for various reasons. But there's others where it's like, okay, it's not what I would have chosen for myself, but if I see it in light of faith, can I embrace, accept this, and offer it back as a holy sacrifice? I think here's the key to heroic virtue. Can I do it consistently and with joy? Not, I mean, because that makes all the difference. Am I just going to like moan and pout and
make my life miserable for my family?
Yeah, can
like, we've both done that. Like we wrote that chapter together. We were like, hi, I did not joyfully sacrifice through that season. It was ugly.
But I think our Lord speaks about anxiety so much. And a lot of people are like, gosh, and there's different kinds of anxiety, but just the run-of-the-mill anxiety in my life, when I've been so overcome with my concerns, my issues, my worries, I might be physically in the same room, but I'm not present. And so I think where our Lord's coming from is it paralyzes our ability to love and get outside of ourselves. So I think the heroic grit, the supernatural grit is even in the midst of those trials, can I still love joyfully even there? Can I not just be a summer Christian, but a winter one too?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. And I can think too of, you know, in my life, those times of struggle. I can think of times in university where I've gone through some serious relationship issues, right? Or as you say, as a, you know, getting older and raising kids and going through those late night struggles and all the kids are sick and throwing up and you're like, I can't do this anymore. Or I'm particularly bad at waking up in the nighttime, which is horrible for being a dad with young kids. But I wake up and I'm always disoriented. I don't know where I am. And I'm always like, oh, every single time. It drives my wife crazy. And I'm trying to, I don't know how to fix that because it's my natural, my first awake moment is like, where am I? What's going on? And, you know, for many, many years now, this is the case anyway. So I'm working on that. But I can think of those times of struggle that require that supernatural grit, right? That require that prayer and pushing through, and and going to mass when you don't feel like it, because you're receiving supernatural grace to help you go on there, and praying the rosary on your knees, struggling through those times, in prayer, calling on Christ. And those are often, you look back, and those are often such fruitful times for the spiritual life, right? That's what I have found time and again. Those almost act as kind of like a pressure cooker for your spirituality. Is that, do you guys agree with that? I'm
oh yeah,
saying things.
I think that's totally true. And I think one thing I add to, and what I hear you saying is, there's partly a need to be patient with ourselves and patient with the Lord, because how are we measuring ourselves? Like, gosh, I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm not as productive as I want to be. And it's like, no, slow down. Let the Lord be your evaluating schema, and maybe like it's not about the productivity. Sometimes, like, what is heroic? Even like prayer. I mean, I remember going to a priest early on in confession, early into marriage, and I'm like, I'm not praying as much as I used to. I'm not, because my situation had changed. And he just said, hey, that man's dead. That man doesn't exist anymore. In other words, there's a balance between, you don't want to just be complacent, but also it can't be like spiritual self-aggrandizement because of just how, like, I want my program because I feel so good about myself. Like, sometimes, like, be patient with the Lord and patient with ourselves. That what does it mean to be heroic now? And it might be less productive even on multiplying the devotions than maybe it was when you were single, but it might be all the more heroic and fruitful, like you're saying, because of what the Lord's doing in and through those circumstances in us. And we can't always feel that, but it's there.
Yeah, and that's part of this book, is trying to help young adults, if you're in a season of singleness, or even young adults that are in a season of where young families, or even adults who are looking back and going, oh yeah, like this applies to me, even if I'm not 20. And then also a lot of them have children that are going through those hard times. And it's like, how do I help them get through this? So it really, people keep asking us, like, demographic, and it's like, yeah, we wrote it for young adults. But my 63-year-old mom read it in 36 hours and loved it. So, like, it's just kind of like you just have to kind of take what's helpful, those gems, like there's a chapter on dating. That doesn't mean that even if you're like, well, I've been married 10 years, it's like, that's okay. Like, that might be some gems you grab for your young adult friends that are, your other friends that are single, but there's stuff in there for everyone. 'Cause this is human dysfunction. It's hard. Like, and we start with our stories because it's like, hi, dysfunctional 1 and dysfunctional 2, like we've been there, we've done it. We're doing it. Like, we wrote a lot of things in here that are like, we're struggling with that right now ourselves. And so it really was kind of one of those books where I don't know if we'll ever be able to, like, do it again. 'Cause it's like our whole heart on a platter. And it's like, we keep joking that we have nothing else to say. You know what I mean? We're kidding, but we're like, this is like literally what we've been talking about for 15 years. And we just pray that it blesses people in all the seasons of their life. And we really hope people read it together with other friends and with other family members or whatever. Because I think it's a great conversation worth having, this book, if that makes sense.
I love it. I love it. Let's do friendships. Okay. So you're sitting down with some young adults on coffee. And I know the importance, you guys know the importance of friendships and those crucial years too, right? When things are kind of adrift, you've maybe left home for the first time, you're in a new place. There's all kinds of new, you can choose for the first time kind of what you want to do with your free time, where you want to go, who you want to befriend. It's almost like a blank slate in some, I guess you often think it is a blank slate, but you still have those same hang-ups and things that you bring to a new environment. But the importance of friendships, in those years, and like you say just now, like the importance of friendships for everybody in all stages of life is important. What would you say over coffee to kind of begin? And you have awesome advice again in the book, and it's unpacked more in depth there, of course. But what would you say, just to kind of maybe scratch the surface, about good Catholic friendships, how to have those, and the importance of those, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I think they're, in many ways, they're everything at every stage in life. So we even now we've got a kind of a prayer group that we get together once a month intentionally, and we other times as well. But I think a place, the couple things that kind of poles that come together, and we like to talk about availability, vulnerability, and accountability. Available, you got to spend time together. You can't, we have friends all over the country, and there's some friends where you pick up right where you left off, but there's a sense in which if you're going to not just like catch up with that person, but actually be in their lives, be a part of their lives. You got to spend time together. Vulnerability, a place to be real, right? So a Catholic, sometimes, we can talk ecclesiopolitics like it's sports scores and just shoot the breeze, and we're not really sharing life. So is there a place where I can go to not have to perform, where I can be real? You joke about your high and your low. So one of the things we do with our prayer group is each couple goes around and shares their high and their low of the month, because those are things, as you like to say, you don't share at a Catholic potluck because you don't want to brag and you don't want to air your dirty laundry. But where can you like fully be real? And then accountability, like virtuous friendship, the key is it's about something. It's not just running at each other, but you're actually pursuing a goal together. And just like a team is united in the pursuit of victory, virtuous friends are really your friendships are as deep as the good that binds you. So what is the good that draws us together? If that's Jesus Christ, if that's eternal life, if that's sharing in the resurrection right now, if that's our Catholic faith, that's going to deepen those friendships. So, and that gives you a context for what does it mean to love that friend? It's to help them get to their goal. And that might mean on occasion that you have the guts to share the hard truths with that. And nobody wants to hear that, but whereas if you don't have that sense of we're going to a goal, then what does love mean? Hey, you do you. If that's what you want, you do you. And it's like, no, you do you, informed by truth, faith, and virtue. And now we're talking.
Now we're talking.
So I think any stage in life, you're gonna become like those that you surround yourselves with, and even have those like in your life that you want to be like. I want to be like that. But like, who are your peer heroes? Like that's gonna, especially as a adolescence and college, but I mean, really, your whole life. Like you need, more is caught than is taught. You got to see it in action, not just like as an idea, but like, how do I live the way?
Yeah. And the other thing that we like to tell people is like, this is going to take effort. I think that there's this like part of people that are like, oh, like these good friends are going to find me. Like they're going to find me in my cubicle at work. You know what I mean? They're going to find me at the grocery store. It's like, no, probably not. And I hate saying that because I think it's like they're not already stressed out enough. You know what I mean? It's like everybody from 18 to 35. The meme I love the best is Jesus' greatest miracle is that he had 12 friends in his 30s. I still think that is like one of the best memes of all time. But like, what did he do? Like, I mean, taking Christ, for example, like he went somewhere, he was in the streets, he was out and he was inviting people. So we call it the power of the invite. And so, if people know the temperaments, I'm choleric sanguine. So I am like, queen of the planning the party, like those are two of my favorite things to do is plan the party. So, I mean, you need some people in your life that are going to get you out of the house, out of your normal way. And you might have to be that person sometimes. And that might not be your personality at all. I had one guy one time tell me, he's like, I just used to stand outside after church and see who else was my age and we'll go to brunch or something, like literally just start asking people to brunch. And then it became this like really cool thing where a bunch of them would go to brunch, and then social media hit and people started just texting each other where they were going to go. And there was a whole group of people that got left out because they were waiting back at the church and no one invited them.
Right.
And that makes me like physically sick. Like it makes me so sad because I'm like, someone's future husband is sitting in the parking lot because you guys didn't invite everyone because you started texting or put it on social media, and those people got left out. So like, there's just parts of me that's like, you guys, this is going to take some effort. You're going to have to like walk up to someone at a young adult event, at a young, at church, at, something. I love YCP, like Young Catholic Professionals. I love, young adult groups that get together because it's literally just a flag that's like, we're here. We're cool. We're trying not to be awkward, but we really want to get together and hang out. This is not a dating session. This is a friend session. Please, let's not keep it awkward. Like we've begged people, we know it's hard because people want to meet their spouses, but this has to be a friendship thing first, because a lot of times you might be hanging out with a group of people where you're like, I'm not probably going to marry any of these people because they're like, I don't have that God chemistry timing thing going here with this group of 10. But guess what? That guy's brother is great. So you should probably ask for, them to keep inviting people. And then all of a sudden you have a group of, 20 or 30. And it's like, wow, there are some people here that are amazing, but they might not be your core 5 that you're going, that you're with all the time. Please have that core, but keep inviting people in and keep putting yourself out there. And I know that we are asking some people to that is literally like moving mountains, and that's so hard to do, but I promise you, you won't regret it. And it's worth the effort to have friends. And I'm saying that also to the young adult parents out there who are like, I can barely brush my hair, let alone having friends, it's so hard. But that was my one regret. Our one regret from first 5 years of marriage was we were in transition. We were moving. I think we moved 6 times in the first 5 years, and because of grad school and just life. And we always would say, we're not going to be here long enough to have friends. And then it was just such a sad, lonely time having all these little kids, and just I literally made friends with the lady at the post office. You know what I mean? I'd go see Lola because she was my only friend. What? I needed really good Catholic friends during that time. And it was me and it was him who were we're too busy. We're just in transition. Yeah. So we literally at any time we can tell young people, young adults, I don't care where you are in your age. I don't care if you're listening to this in your 50s and 60s. Find a couple to go out with once a month and share life with. And it'll just bring so much joy to your life, and it's worth the effort.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love that. And it's so true. We've moved here about a year ago now to a new city after 20 years where we've moved, and making friends was this kind of scary thing for us. We're both kind of introverted, and lucky for us, there was some, a core group of families with kids around our same ages who were doing a brunch thing at their house and invited us over and just welcomed us into this amazing Catholic community. And we're you realize quite quickly the importance of being plugged into friendships like that, right? We're so grateful that happened for us. We would have been lost otherwise. But at all stages, the importance of that. And I think so important that there are people making space like that in the young adult community, right? Whether it's other young adults, whether it's people like you guys opening up your house and inviting in and facilitating those things, that's so crucial to form those friendships. And I think so that you can find other people who do life like you, other Catholics who are serious about this, right? That isn't always easy to find. You end up finding people who have some interests that you like, but aren't practicing Catholic. So, that rubs off on people, right? The faith like that resonates, right? That helps you to iron sharpens iron, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, completely.
Way, right? But you need those Catholic friendships to spur each other on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Especially as the kids come of age. I mean, this group's been transformative for our kids. Yeah, one thing we mentioned in the book is I think there's a need to be open to letting the Lord surprise you. I mean, we've all had friendships where it's I didn't think at first glance that we would click because maybe our backgrounds are different. And you look at the apostles, they were very Simon the Zealot and Matthew the tax collector should not be hanging out.
Motley crew.
But in Christ, something deeper is there, and you might be surprised at what kind of friendship could unfold and develop that you didn't see at first glance. So whether that could be with a spouse, but especially these friends groups, I think it's easy, as you said, to just hunker down if you're 3 or 4 and not branch out. And I think you're missing out, and you're missing out on the Lord maybe surprising you, and you're missing out on maybe what you could do for somebody else. That's just something that we've seen a lot. It was true of us. So in college, we had our conversions oh, you're breathing, you love Jesus, let's be friends, right? Because it was a different time, and I think there's a danger, whether it's looking for a spouse or with friends, of being too picky for the wrong reasons.
Right? We talk about that in the book a lot because we always say there's non-negotiables, right? I think everybody knows the non-negotiables, but we've ministered to enough people where that literally the girl's well, he's not 6 foot and he's a Cubs fan, so I'm a Cardinals fan, so we can never work, and it's okay, well, maybe God wants you to be a split house Cardinals Cubs. It's going to be fine. You know what I mean? We just kind of say sometimes people, and truthfully, this is a whole nother podcast, but social media has done great damage to this, because what used to be first impressions were at a restaurant, at a bar, at a Knights of Columbus dance. I swear everyone's grandparents met at a Knights of Columbus dance. Your first impressions were their personality, their looks, they were the common interests. You got to hear from them what they're about. Yeah. Social media has thrown a really interesting curveball, because you're seeing people, you're seeing the profiles, you're reading about them, and you're making assumptions before you've ever met them.
Yeah.
And it changes a lot the way that friends interact. I always say you can learn more about someone on a date with like a group date with like 10 of your guy friends, 10 of your girlfriends hanging out than you will on 3 first blind dates or 3 first dates, because you're seeing how they interact with the opposite sex. You're seeing how, I mean, there's like so much you can learn by observing. And it's really interesting. I think people have a lot of stereotypes and biases and assumptions on other people before they've ever met. And that's with friendships too. It's like, oh, like they're not my type friendship wise. It's like, why? Have you ever even talked to them, So it's just really trying to open people up to, it's okay if they're the same height as you. It's going to be okay. You just don't wear heels, right? Like, it's okay if you're even like in a different city because, you can drive and meet up. It's okay that they're not part of your big 3, big 4 people. These people might introduce you to them. And so you said it best. And, my heart just kind of like got so happy when you said that these young couples invited you to brunch. Yeah. Like, it is all about the power of the invite. And I joke, we joke that we have parties called Find Your Spouse at my house. And literally, I feel like it is the duty of some of us young, like I call myself young, married couples that have already met their spouses and have kids. Like, it is on us to help our young adult friends find their spouses. Like, this is my plea to every, couple out there that's happily married. Like, look at the people around you and make friends with people that are, kind of in a different state as you, and really help them to find their people. It might just be, hey, like my babysitter, she's awesome. And the guy that cuts your grass is awesome. Your mowing guy, like help them find each other. He's Catholic. She's Catholic. They're awesome. Let's have a party and invite all of our cool Catholic friends over, because you don't know what's going to happen. And it might not be those two, but it might be her sister and her brother. I mean, how many times have our grandparent, my grandma was like, well, I was on a date with this other guy, but your grandpa was cuter. So we just switched. I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Like, why can't it be that easy anymore? So we're trying to help. Again, don't give up. Please don't give up. And if you're happily in your vocation, please help out.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My wife and I are the same height, so she can't wear heels. And you know what? It's okay. 14
My
years.
parents are the same height. She wore ballerina slippers on her wedding day. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's really fine.
It's working out. Okay, let's talk explicitly about dating then. And I think for me, something so important that I think, looking at the wider world and how secular dating happens and how the tenor of the whole world these days, chastity in dating and the importance of that. It's not a very popular or fun topic. I gotta say though too, that so many like adult converts to the Catholic faith like myself will be attracted to the Catholic faith through messages of chastity, right, and sexuality, and things like natural family planning. I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to on this show, converts, who those are the things about the church as older adults that have been like, oh wow, like the church teaches this. I love that. What else does the church teach?
Versus right? So, your 16-year-old self, right?
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So not going to hook in necessarily like the teens and adults, but that stuff is amazing, like in the whole scope of it. But let's do dating and chastity. Where do you begin to kind of to frame that for the Catholic young adult who's like, okay, how do I date and why is chastity important? Because that's a big topic.
Yeah,
well, and I think you were alluding earlier. You mentioned Catholics and others in the kind of secular hookup culture, and then maybe the Joshua Harris dynamics of right. So the kind of poles of like, guys and girls don't talk to each other, and there's a hookup culture, and even I've done surveys with my students for years now, and we're just talking to people anecdotally that there sometimes implicitly is received a message that don't, and the implicit message is sex is like dirty or bad or hush hush, and even when they get married, they have a psychological hard time, like switching gears. Oh, now it's good. And it's like to really communicate the goodness of and this is what's so beautiful about our Catholic faith, the goodness of the body, the goodness of sex, the reasons behind why we teach what we do. So I think it's important that at least with parenting, especially getting that across, but with the dating scene, we have the chapter on can men and women be friends, right? And I think to this issue, some are going to say, no, you don't be friends, and then you just court when it's time to get married. And it's like, or you do friends with benefits and other crazy stuff, right? It's like, no, we need to be around each other. Men and women need to learn how to be themselves around each other. This sets up a context for, and even if you're going to become a priest or religious, like you're going to find people throughout your life that you might find attractive. Like, how are you going to deal with this in a healthy way?
One of my favorite chapters in the book is chapter 12. This is why it's always hard, because like we always beg people to read the whole book, because sometimes the like best parts of a book are at the end, but you have to like build a foundation to get to them. And chapter 12 is, what does sex have to do with the spiritual life? And it's a little provocative in some ways, but it was definitely in there for a reason. And it's chapter 12 for a reason. Like the ending of the book is really, how does all of this play with my relationship with God? And I think that that's a big question for a lot of young adults, because it's like, what does God and sex, they don't even go in the same sentence. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Or just like my pain and my wounds, like we have, just how to get through, okay, fine. I have this whole set of baggage and wounds, and even the way I think about things is wounded, and the way that I perceive things in myself is wounded. And so kind of like looking at all of that within your relationship with God. And it's kind of been a joke for a long time for me, like I literally, I will walk. Okay. So I've been doing this for 15 years, ministry with young adults and high schoolers. And I will walk into a high school with 1,000 kids, and I'll park my car. I'll go to the office. I'll put the visitor badge on, sign in, and I'll turn around and there's like a picture of me on the wall of the school. And it's like, Sarah Swafford, 2 p.m., gem, chastity speaker. And I'm like, shoot me. Someone shoot me. Like, why? Like, please make me a little bit cooler. Like, here I am, the chastity speaker. Can't wait to entertain you for 48 minutes at 2 p.m. So, I mean, like, it's one of those things where, it is really hard to talk about. A lot of people just like don't talk about it. But Jason Everett, we love Jason, and Jason is a huge part of why I do ministry, because he made me and he begged me. And he's like, people ask him, why do you talk about chastity? Why is your ministry so chastity heavy? And he looks at people and he says, because I believe it is the number one thing that keeps people away from the church. And I believe it's the number one thing that keeps people away from God. And I think so often I could sit here and be like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in some way or another, whether it's woundedness, confusion, like trying to figure out how they fit in this world of the church with their, with their sexuality, TOB, all of that stuff. It is a huge barrier to Jesus for a lot of people. And so, being able to walk through and sort through that stuff with a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, doing all that heavy lifting when you're in junior high and high school. And like, and a lot of times I tell them, I'm like, I'm not Debbie Downer. I'm not Betty Buzzkill. I'm not here to ruin your life. I'm not here to tell you how to live. I am here because you've been fed a lot of lies. And I want there to be at least one voice. So you can be like, what did that crazy blonde chick from Kansas say when you're like in college trying to sort this stuff out? Yeah, I'm trying to just give you a third way, another way to play the game. Yeah. And by the end of it, like, I think they want to hate me. Like, they really do. They want to hate me. And then at the end, they're like, dang it.
She makes too much
She
sense.
sounds like my mom, but cooler.
She's right.
I'm like, yes, that's what I wanted to, but they can't, they hear things that they can't unhear.
Yeah. And
they see things that they can't unsee when I throw up quotes and when I share my story and share my heart, and I'm just like pleading with them to just think about it. Like literally I'm throwing ideas out, just like the world and the culture's throwing ideas out. Yeah. It's your choice. It's in your hands to play how you want to live this. And that's what this book is too. It's like, look, you can play this game a lot of different ways, but there's a lot of heartache at the end of a lot of these paths. And so we're just trying to show you a couple different routes that you can take. And I think it's freeing for people because they go, dang, I thought I just had to play the game. Yes. And the game is hard to play, and it's even harder to play without God. And so I think that it's really important for people just to see chastity is not meant to be this great no. And again, just like take away your fun, take away your joy, take away your life. Chastity is a great yes. And it's a great yes to a freedom and a truth and a beauty and a goodness that the world can't give and only the Lord can give. But getting a young adult to like walk that path with you, it's hard. It takes time. It's exhausting. I mean, sometimes it's the whole like, Pope John the 23rd, he was like, it's your church, Lord, I'm going to bed. You know what I mean? Like we're going to give it as much as we can, but then people have to pick it up and run with it. And so just trying to put it out there for them is kind of the goal.
Andrew, you were right. She's really good.
I talk too much. I know. We always get off these things. And I'm like, oh, gosh.
As we say in the States, I married up.
No, I married. No, God knew what
we have that in Canada too. I agree. That's awesome. I love that. You know what? And that's so important as that counter narrative to what the world presents, to say, hey, you don't have to play this game. Here's the game we're playing here. And you mentioned too, Sarah, the end, that game over there, the world game, that ends in a lot of heartache. That's gonna hurt you, right? Here's our game. There's gonna be hurts as well in our version, and maybe more immediate hurts for you, right? But the end goal is living the way that Christ intended us to live, oriented toward eternity, right? It's gonna be harder up front, but it's gonna pay off in the end, because that you'll be living the life that was made for you. I love that. And funny enough, this is kind of random, but when I had Jimmy Akin from Catholic Answers on the show years ago, and talking about why people don't become Catholic. And he said, look, all this apologetics aside, theology aside, like doctrine, dogma, Mary and the saints, these things that people don't like about being Catholic, it's sex. He said it's sex that people don't, because they have this distorted view of what the Catholic Church understands sex to be, with rules and all these no's, right? And that's why they want to be Catholic. It's because sex. And I thought, right? And the more I talk to people like you guys, I'm like, you know what? He was right. Like, he was right. That's at the end of the day what people are going to say. No, you know what? I don't want anything to do with this because they're telling me these things that I can't do.
Yeah,
right? I think that's so interesting.
It's the devil's favorite playground as well.
Well,
so I mean, he's going to poke into old wounds, and it's just, he loves sneaking in there, and he loves twisting the truth.
Yeah.
So it's really muddy and messy.
Yeah. As I joke with students teaching on like moral life and prudence, stuff like that, I'm like, if your reason is at odds with your passions, you got one or two options. You can conform your passions to right reason, or you can cook up some good reasons to justify doing what you want to do, which is the way of the human condition and original sin. Like, that's what we do, right? I mean, so passions, desire, for all of us so often leads the train.
Yeah, that's fantastic, guys. This is an awesome book and an awesome conversation. I'm grateful for your time, guys, and listeners are going to love this, I think. I'll put links to the book in the show notes, but you guys both do tons and tons of things, so I don't know where you want to point people towards to follow or find those things. I can't possibly, even in your intro, introduce you guys properly, because it's going on.
No,
and it's awesome stuff. So where do you want to point them towards? And I'll put links to these things too in the show notes.
We just recently made the website theswaffords.com, because it's really cool. We've been doing a lot of stuff together since COVID, because we were quarantined together, so people would be like, hey, like, can you both come on? And we're like, yeah, as long as my 15-year-old will take care of the children. Yeah, we'll come. So yeah, we have loved doing things together. We love doing things individually. So there's a lot of stuff that Swaff does with Ascension, with the Bible, and just all that neat stuff is there. I love doing emotional virtue. I love doing dating and relationships. And then our new book is there as well. So theswaffords.com, there's a store there, and you can get all of our stuff there. And we even can personally sign that stuff because it's from our house. So a lot of people like to give them as gifts or like personalize them. And we love doing that for people. These books make great gifts. And I always say, a lot of people say, like, I bought one for myself, and then I bought one because I knew I was going to give it away. And that, I really love that, because I think a lot of times, or a lot of people are like, hey, I had to buy another one because I gave my copy away. That's usually what happens too. So yeah, please, share it. I think there's a lot of people that'll read it and go, I really want my significant other to read this, or my brother, sister, friend. And then you'll have someone to really chat with about it, because it's a book that's great for yourself, but then you're kind of like, I need to decompress this with someone, or I need an accountability partner, or I just need someone to be vulnerable with. So yeah, we really wrote it so people, there's discussion questions in the back, so you can really kind of like chat about it or do it in a group.
Because I think if a group is reading that together and discussing it, it can start to form their own short of Viscos.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you're not wrong. I was already thinking of who I could give this book to next after I finish reading it. I'm like, okay, who else would want it? Yeah, okay. And then, so before you even mentioned that, I was already thinking through who's going to get this next. So.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for having us. And we loved hanging out with you. Thanks for all you do. Having a podcast is not easy. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of editing and all the things. And so thank you so much for doing what you do. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks.
And we pray for your wife.
Thank you. And I want to say God bless you guys. Baby. I know. I'm already tired. So it can't get worse, right?
That's right. It's a gift. It's
more tired.
It's good. It's a gift.
Seasons in life.
Yeah. Baby snuggles are worth it. Baby snuggles are worth it. That's what
it's my favorite stage, I think, like so far. I mean, we have an 8-year-old, so we've got yet a ways to go before there are other stages. But right now, favorite stage. I love it.
Well, enjoy it. You deserve it. It's
Thanks,
a lot
guys.
of work. So
God bless you guys. The work you're doing for the church. It's awesome. And thank you for being here, guys.
Yeah. God bless.
God bless, Keith.